When it comes to Sanji and his proficiency with blades, we don't actually get to see too much of that all throughout the series. However, there are some key things that we know about Sanji from his fight against Wanzi back in Water 7 and from Judge to kind of understand that he is really good with swords. And to get into that, let's start by looking at his fight with Wanzi. Because as goofy as this dude was, Sanji without using blades was not able to get around his ramen armor. His kicks would just get stuck in the ramen and then he would get slammed around like a rag doll. And then when he got free and he tried to get in close to kick Wanzi in the face, Wanzi would just spit sharp ramen pieces at Sanji and he couldn't do anything about it. So honestly, in this situation, Sanji was forced to have to use blades to get around the ramen armor because without them, he was unable to do so. And we know that the knives that Sanji was using was of a high quality because even Wanzi was telling him, like, you don't know how to use those knives. They're not something for a common thug to use. And Sanji just had to let him know, like, all right, let me show you how a first-class cook uses knives. And before we could even see how it happened, he already had cut off the ramen arms off screen. So by the time we got here, the fight was basically over. We were able to see that the attacks that gave Sanji such a hard time were now easy to deal with once he had these blades and Wanzi couldn't get a single hit in on this dude. And he had the proficiency and skill to cut through all of Wanzi's armor without even putting a scar on this man. Even Wanzi was confused, like, wait, how come I'm not cut? And Sanji told him, like, knives are for cutting food, they're not for cutting people. So he was even holding back in this moment. And I would say being able to cut somebody's armor to shreds without doing a single lick of damage to them shows a lot of skill with the blade. And the moment that makes this all come full circle is when Sanji's fighting Judge and Judge realizes that Sanji can use Haki to block his blade. Now I need you to understand, Judge is like Sanji's biggest hater. Even when he sees Sanji is good at something, he makes it sound like a backhanded compliment. Sanji blocks his Garuda spear with his leg. Instead of being like, oh, you got pretty good Haki, he says, to think you of all people are capable of using Haki. Like, dude, lighten up. However, while he was using the Haki thing to be like a backhanded compliment, when it came to talking about swordplay, he didn't say anything insulting to Sanji. He just told this man, I'll give you the courtesy of picking up a sword, because I remember training you in the way of the sword. If Sanji's biggest hater knew that he was terrible with the sword, do you think he would have gave him any courtesy whatsoever? He'd have used this as an opportunity to say that you're trash. But this means that even when Sanji was a child, Judge taught him enough and he saw enough from Sanji to be like, okay, he knows how to use blades, so I'm gonna give him the courtesy of picking up a sword so that I can have a real fight. So to answer your question, we don't really have many examples outside of Water 7 to showcase that he is good with swords. But when your number one hater can't hate on you for it, I think that says a lot. Not to mention, if Sanji wasn't proficient with blades, I don't think he could fight other swordsmen like Zoro all the time and actually be able to put up a decent fight. Like, the best way to fight another swordsman and know what it is they're about to do is to be a swordsman yourself. And who knows, we might see some really cool stuff in the future from Sanji. I'm still of the mind that he will have to use his hands at some point later on because he'll end up in a situation where he can't like have the luxury of, I'm not going to use my hands, they're only for cooking. His life, Nami's life, or even Luffy's life will be on the line in the final war and he will have to use his hands. And imagine Sanji putting Infrit Jambe on a sword and then with his armament Haki, he kind of has like a blade similar to Shanks, only instead of red fire, it's blue fire. And while that's just speculation on my part, I just think it would be really cool to see Sanji like go all out, at least in one fight in the entire series, where he finally uses everything in his arsenal to just beat somebody. I don't care if it's a one and done situation, but I'm pretty sure Oda did not show us this dude using swords, be really proficient with them, and get vouched for by his biggest hater, just to never have Sanji use swords again. I'm pretty sure that time is coming. We in the final saga.